LTTV Weekly, number 3, I believe. Geordan Murphy returns, Tigers head coach / director of rugby in waiting, the longest title in world rugby. And speaking of long names, Dan Cole also joins us this week. Coley, how are you, mate? How's lockdown?
Very good, thank you. Yeah, it's all right. It's a bit dragging on a bit, but can't complain too much.
Can see there behind you, you've obviously been sending some faxes.
Yeah. I don't like the modern world, so just keeping it real. Got my pager over there if anyone needs to contact me, and the landline. Remember those things? I'm actually on dial-up internet as well. It's probably the beep, 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 you can hear in the background.
And then a random staple remover there on the windowsill.
Yeah. There's no saving of trees around here and stuff like that. If people want to send me stuff, they send via paper letters. I don't do email.
What are you doing to keep you obviously training? We'll touch on that in a minute. I would imagine you're reading the Bernie Sanders and those kind of books at the moment.
No, I am reading a bit. Nothing too heavy though. I've read about what I'm reading now about the Chicago Cubs baseball team in 2015 when they went from being really bad to winning the World Series. So yeah, that's interesting at the minute. Are
you in charge of homeschooling?
There isn't. Schooling's a very loose term. I say my boys are 3. Well, they'll be 4 in July. Trying to get them to sit down and do anything. I'm currently sort of working on maths and English and sounds and stuff like that. But they've worked out like T for tiger. One of them loves tigers. One of them loves lions. And basically, it's T for tiger. So I go, right, and your name's Ralph. So R for Ralph. Like R for reindeer. R for, he's like, no. I'm L for lion. It's like, no, you're R for Ralph. He's like, no, I'm L for Ralph. It's like L for lion. No. And the other one just goes, I'm T for tiger. No, you're H for Henry. He's like, no, I'm T for Henry. It's like, so that's basically you just give up.
Could you record one of them and send it to us? Because that would just be a fantastic conversation.
Yeah,
that would definitely go viral. That would definitely go viral, Coley. Education Hour Phonetics with Coley.
Yeah. For scrum.
For push.
Yeah. No for knock on. Yeah.
It's a good question though, because obviously I'm imagining that most players are probably losing weight at the moment, not being in the gym as much as you used to, and running and doing that cardio work. How are you actually keeping up with scrum work, if at all?
Well, I'm keeping my mass on. Don't worry about that. That's I spoke to Boris Stankovic, a nutritionist, before lockdown, and he gave me his eating plan. You don't really. Obviously, there's only so much scrummaging the boys all do in the backyard, but you're basically just trying to keep your neck strength up, and that's about it, really. Or your sort of neck, shoulder strength, all the sort of stuff that comes in contact. But yeah, you can't really replicate. I'm not pushing against the tree anyway in the back garden yet.
You don't have a scrum machine in the backyard?
That's classified information.
So I'm imagining you're not going on the 10-kilometre runs every day.
No.
Doesn't strike me as something you're doing. But Geordie, I hear you're training again.
If by training you mean I went for a cycle, then yes, I've been training.
Not ahead of any return, just to clarify.
No, definitely not ahead of any return. I got about 15 miles on my bicycle and then I fell off it. So, it was I'm thinking about it. I'm going to break myself in slowly. It's been a long time, so the cycle was enough.
How have things been this week, Geordie? I mean, if I can ask quickly, obviously we had a hot topic last week. Conversations continue to roll on. Are you happy with the progress in terms of the way the club and the players are speaking?
Yeah, we're really happy. Obviously, we had some really great Zoom calls last week and we got everyone on board and that's been moving in the right direction. So we're happy with where we're at the moment.
Coley, I imagine it was, to call a spade, I imagine it was disappointing to see things played out in the media from your perspective.
Yeah, definitely. I think there was a lot of the problem with it coming out in the media is it gets a spin on it that isn't the tone of what was probably actually going on. And I think yes, as players, of course, you speak to your agents and seek legal counsel at unprecedented times and what we're doing. I think everyone is entitled to do that, and I think the media played out that the club was in massive dispute or a civil war, and it wasn't the case at all. I think you're allowed to. There's no one knows what's going on really. You're allowed to sort of find advice, and that's what people did. And obviously, that's got out one way or another, and tried to sort of stir the pot. When I think actually, the club and the players have worked really hard to protect the interests of the club. Well, protect the club, which is the most important thing.
I mean, moving swiftly back onto the important subject of rugby, how hard is it for you not necessarily being able to train towards a specific return date as yet? What's the mindset like?
It's I won't say it's too hard. It's probably, we've been given, obviously before the lockdown sort of started and everything happened, we sort of given plans to do with the equipment that we've got. Unfortunately, I've got sort of bit of gym equipment and stuff and around here, so I can train, and it's actually quite, you can either hate it or you can enjoy it, and I actually quite enjoy training, doing things a bit differently. And then I think obviously when you do get a return date, that's when you'll ramp up the running, mat on feet stuff you do. At the minute, you're sort of doing a lot of watt biking, all that kind of stuff. Whereas I think when you actually get a return, the only thing is you obviously don't want to, you got to play like tomorrow, you need to get your loads up and all that kind of stuff. So you need a date beforehand. But obviously, bit like in pre-season, we have a couple of weeks off, and then you sort of gradually build yourself back into a load. So you can actually start day one of pre-season, you're good to go, which is what we'll do. I say, in the minute, it's not too much of a, because we've got programs and because you're training, it's not too bad. And I think there's only be a small adjustment when actually we get the go ahead to return. Then as individuals, we'll have to probably up our running and get the loads up, as I said. But yeah, that'll be fine.
Geordie, from your perspective, without a return date, obviously there's a lot being tossed around the media and people are having all their opinions on it as other sports put dates up. What's the mindset from you and the coaching staff around how do you keep the guys motivated?
I've been really impressed with the way the guys have gone about their business. And as Coley sort of said, it's just like keeping the engine ticking over. The guys had programs to take away and they've all been very engaged in doing that. Guys who haven't had the equipment have sought out ways to keep themselves in good condition. It's a really unusual situation in that we don't know where the finish line is as such. And so, the guys aren't training at an intensity that we would expect for Weekly to play on the weekend. I think what Coley's alluding to, but they're keeping themselves in really good shape. And I've had conversations with most of the guys. A lot of the coaches have conversations with the guys, and they're in a good space. I think keeping yourself active really helps. It gives you a little bit of structure to your day and getting out and getting some exercise. Our guys all know what it takes to be professional players. You got to work very, very hard. So as a result, they don't want to miss a beat. They don't want to get left behind, and they've been training well. And in saying that, once we get the green light of exactly the date, then we'll ramp everything up in order to get the guys match ready.
Obviously, this week, a couple of announcements, one in, one out. Firstly, Jonah Holmes.
Yeah, Jonah's done a good job for us since he joined from the Championship. Jonah obviously was under a bit of pressure to go back to Wales, and he requested the move. It was important for him to further his international career, and we didn't want to stand in his way. It's a very difficult one when a player is under contract and doesn't request to leave. So from my point of view, we have to respect Jonah's wishes, and he's done a good job for us, and we wish him all the best in his future Welsh career.
And then I guess one incoming one is the international Matt Scott. Very exciting.
Yeah, Matt's a great player. He's done a great job for Edinburgh over the last few years, and we found out he was out of contract, and we were very excited about his potential. He's got Premiership experience in that he played some rugby at Gloucester last season on loan. He's played right across the back line for Edinburgh as well, in the midfield and on the wing. He's got pace. So we think we've added some strength to the squad with Matt.
Coley, as a tight head prop, I have to ask you what you think about the incoming outside and midfield back in Matt Scott.
Exciting times.
He likes scrummaging, Coley. He likes scrummaging.
Oh, no, that's all right then. Yeah, fine. Yeah. I'm sure we'll come across for a scrum sesh. If we ever lose a man to the bin, we need a sense to come across into the flank. He can do that. So I'm sure we'll have a great time.
I guess the good question for you, Coley, is when you add someone who's played you know, a lot of rugby in two different competitions in the Prem, in the Pro 14 and an international level, it's always a positive to have that rugby IP coming in.
Definitely. I think it's the premierships are fairly, from speaking to, so I don't even know, but like you speak to guys from around the globe, the premierships are fairly unique competition. The intensity of it every week, you've got to be at your best. And I think to have that experience of playing here before is important. So it won't be a shock to system having that experience of players who've experienced it before coming into the changing room and, you know, adding value to the team is massively important.
When you talk about someone coming in, Geordie, I know we've touched on Steve Borthwick's arrival, but Coley, you've had probably more experience than most with Steve as a coach, particularly as a forwards coach. It's probably a good chance for you to tell us a little bit about what, you know, Steve will bring.
I think he'll be brilliant. I think he's the way he operates at England. He pretty much ran the show. I mean, Eddie was at the top, but the day-to-day workings and training, everything like that, a lot of it Steve was handling and running through. A lot of the way, if you looked how well England's forward pack was drilled, sort of set piece, line out, contact, collision areas, that was sort of Steve's fingerprints all over it. So I think, you know, he's very detailed, very organised. I think he will bring that to the club, and, you know, it'll be massive for us.
I guess the combination too that he'll have with Boris, as well as the development he can give a young coach like Brett Deacon.
Yeah, I think he can, you know, will help the coaching staff. I mean, Steve's played in the Premiership, you know, coaching international level, so he knows the competition. It's not a sort of shock to him. He's obviously studied it hard with England, watched a lot of games, so he knows the competition, which is important because it is unique in the sort of rugby area. And I think that's he's a forwards coach, and I think Leicester traditionally we've been based in those areas, and I think Steve will galvanise and you know, make our pack probably where it needs to be to, you know, perform in the Premiership.
The opportunities that not only Steve's arrival brings for young guys, Geordie, for their development, but also the opportunities that come up now as guys move on and the conveyor belt continues, which is professional sport and professional rugby. Are you excited about the opportunities and those young guys on their way up?
Yeah, definitely. We're in a great position that we've got a very strong academy. We've won 3 titles in the last 3 years. And that's something that traditionally Leicester had. You know, speaking to Dan, who obviously came through that system and has gone on to the highest of honours. We need to harness that. You know, it's always a difficult one in that we bring through a quality team every year, and we have to hand select the elite out of that group to progress. But something that we need to do, and I'm excited about the amount of young talent that's coming through the ranks at Tigers.
For 2 weeks running, you've told me there'll be additions, so I'm going to ask you again. I'm going to press you on it. When are we going to see additions to the squad?
Hopefully we can announce some more next week. We've given you one this week in Matt Scott, so you can't tell me off too much, Sam. We'll have some more next week. And
you have alluded to changes in the coaching staff?
Yeah, look, as I said all along, you know, we're constantly on the lookout for additions to the environment and to make us stronger and make us better. And that's something that we've done. And when we're ready to announce that, I will make sure that you're the very first to know, Sam. Lovely.
I'll tell Coley. Touched on the academy success. I think it's a good topic to go into. I mean, 3 successive premierships, or a three-peat, as we like to call it. You're welcome. Enjoy that one. Coley, when you look back on your time, it's obviously a little bit different now. When you're making that step up, what's the biggest thing or the biggest, I guess, what's the biggest wake-up call when you finally step into the senior rugby?
It's the intensity of it all. I think when I was coming through, it was in the academy, you sort of, the top end of the academy, you're probably one of the better players. And then as soon as you move into the first team, you're bottom of the pile, bottom of the skills to get bottom of the physicality, and you have to be at your best every session, because if you're not, then you will get found out. And I think that was probably the big turning point, but as soon as you came into the first team, there's a few of us at that age group, myself, Tom Youngs, but you had to, you know, every session you went out on, you couldn't float around for a second or a minute because you'd miss a line out or do this, and there'd be someone there, and you'd let someone down. And so you've got to the step up in intensity and the knowledge required, the physical aspect. You know, it was a fast learning curve, put it that way.
I would imagine you had quite an introduction too with the likes of Julian White and Castro.
Yeah, I sat back and watched for a while. But to be fair, I had a great. Boris was joined when I was sort of in the first team area of Bedford, so I was probably about 20, 21. Boris joined, and so he took me under his wing. Him, Mem Davis were brilliant, and so that front row played a massive role in my development and sort of brought us through. I think similar with sort of Tom Youngs and when he converted over to hooker, those senior guys took a lead in our development and helped us massively.
Talk about coming through with Tom. How important is it that, and I'll ask Geordie as well in the new role, especially for him, but how important is it that you have those groups coming through in terms of building, I guess, a development group and building some trust and reliability among young guys that can come in and take on the jerseys?
It's hugely important, and I think what Cody's alluding to there is the older, most senior guys taking people under their wings is massive for us. We're in a position next year where we're going to bring a couple of a young hooker and a young prop through, and young Jack Roundtree and Archie Vaines will come through, and like Coley and Tom Youngs were taken under wings, they hopefully will be looked after in a very similar way, and the cycle can continue. So it's a nice way for the system to operate.
Dan, one for you is obviously it would be lovely to have everyone come through and everyone make their first appearance for Tigers in the senior team. How hard is it when you do have to say goodbye to guys that you've had played 4 or 5 years with at that junior age? And I guess sometimes you see them crack on and do good things. And I know fans like to say that we've missed the boat on players, but it's sometimes a matter of timing as well, isn't it, given what's available in the senior squad?
No, yeah. Well, I'd say it's timing, opportunity. You've got to be available to take your chance. There's plenty of things. I think the Tigers is it's a unique environment, and it doesn't suit everybody. I think that's not a negative. That's what we are, and I think that's probably. And that's not to say, as you said, people have had success who've been in through the system and had success elsewhere, but they maybe weren't a fit for what we do, and that's rightly or wrongly. But this is what we are. That's what we're going to build, and that's what I think the way forward is. We will build on the strengths of what Steve and Geordie and the team, the coaches, plan the strengths of the team to be, and that's what we build. And that's you either fit in or you don't, and that's not a. That's I think the game, and that's how you build good squads, and that's so how people fit off the field, on the field. If you want to be the best, you have to fit a certain criteria. And yes, the team has to move to you a bit, but you have to come to the team, and that's good teams are built around that.
You talked a bit about the identity. One for probably both you to answer is how important is it when you bring someone through that they're aware of what the club's about and what it means to represent the Tigers senior team? And that's not to say that senior recruits don't understand it, but I would imagine that young guys coming through allow you to see that longevity of those identity pieces.
Yeah, I think the academy do a great role. I see the guys coming through that system, and we're very lucky to have some great coaches in that academy setup. Those young players coming through are acutely aware of what the club is about and what it means to them. And when they get their opportunities, that on the whole they've shown some really positive traits. As you say, it's really important that they know who we are and what we're about. That's as Coley sort of said and alluded to. There's a lot of players who've come through. It doesn't mean you're not a good player or a great player if we don't hold you. It's just sometimes not the right fit.
Dan, do you have anything on that? Or
yeah, well, I think the thing of the academy. When I look at what I sort of went through and came through, the squad. The core of the squad was your Brett Deacons, Abraham Tipicus, Vestes, Lewis Deacons, a lot of those boys who had, some of them went on to international honours and others didn't, but they were there day in, day out, and they pushed hard in training. Everything was done to a high standard, and there was a competition amongst each other for places. And, when the internationals went away, those boys stepped up and won games for the club. And that was the reason I think Leicester probably ended up winning premierships and titles, is because, the team fought hard in the international periods and put, when the internationals came back and they were not say the cherries on top, but the icing to the cake, there was a strong base there. And I think that's what you want from your academy guys, is a lot of them might not get the the glory of international or the recognition, but they're there day in, day out, working hard, pushing each other, pushing peer groups, pushing the person in front of them, on the sort of depth chart to be better, and making sure everything, they're the foundation of what you build upon. And that's, if you've had that you've been through the system in the academy, that's what, as I say, what the club's about, and that's what pushes people on. And there's no resting spot, and yes, people will go, but then you want more people from the academy to come through, filter in, keep doing those. The jobs that require probably no talent is what, what I mean? Like I say, it's effort areas, it's every rep counts, all those kind of stuff. That's what you want from those guys. And that's important. I think that's across the squad. And, when in the successful teams I've been in, it's blokes from the academy and stuff like that have been a massive part of the core of the team. But don't get the recognition that they deserve, because they're not sometimes the match winners or the internationals, but actually they're more important than any of them.
So you're talking about tight head props.
Yeah.
So if I can put you both on the spot, then we hear a lot about identity, and culture is everyone's favourite word in sport. But the one we hear at Leicester Tigers particularly is the Tigers way, or the Tigers way of doing things. So you both came through at different points. Your careers have obviously crossed over as players and now as a coach and a player, or DOR and player. Geordie, you first. What's the Tigers way? What is it?
As in, I was hoping that Dan was going to go first, so I could agree with him. But I think when you come through a system here, it's very much sink or swim. Dan, has said it earlier. You got to fit in, and what that looks like is you got to be desperate and you got to work very, very hard. We want to look what our fan base is like, and our fans expect us to go out and fight for everything and be incredibly tough. And when we've got that right, and the successful teams that I was very lucky to be a part of certainly had the base of a really gnarly, aggressive, hard-nosed forward pack that would go toe-to-toe with any opposition and take great pride in it, and a smattering of skill behind the scrum, but also the ability to have that iron as well. So we've got to we're on a path and a journey to try and recreate that, and that's where we're trying to get to.
Coley?
Yeah, I think it's there's a sort of, as Geordie says, there's a toughness to the way we do things. I think it's we are fairly, there's nothing particularly flash about the club in that regard and the way we play, or I think that reflects in probably Leicester the place. There's no, for rugby players, there's no distractions. When you live in Leicester, there's no distractions. It's basically, rugby is the main thing you're here to do, and that's because you love the game. And that's you show that in the way you train, the way you play. And I think that's the way Leicester has traditionally been, and that's the way we want to play, and or want to get back to is, you've got to have a toughness to you. The way we play the game, the way we be. We've probably never been the most successful, not successful, we've never been the most skillful team in the world, but with hard work, teamwork, the bonds that we build together, you overcome those, and that's the most successful teams I've been in, have been those teams that have replicated what I've just said.
Well, again, Geordie, I appreciate your time. We've gone over by a few minutes. I had asked if some fans had some questions for Coley, but we don't have time this week, so I will. I'll let them be. Yeah. I'll get them to What about if I get them to fax them to you?
Oh, it's my mum. Yeah. That was a question. She just rang me with a question. It's fine. She don't need to text you.
So if you have any questions for Coley, just fax them to 07. Yeah. I don't even know a fax number, mate. I'm too young to know what a fax number is.
Just do it via pigeon.
All right. Well, I hope you have a lovely weekend. Happy first day of the month. I'm not sure there's much more to discuss. So thank you for your time, gentlemen.
We'll see you next week. Coley, who are you going to nominate to? Who's up next week?
Yeah.
Oh, who do you want to see?
No, I don't want to see anyone, to be quite honest.
I want to see Boris. I'm missing him.
Boris. Yeah.
Boris. We could do Boris. Let's find him. Let's get him on.
Yeah, find out what he's been doing.
I'm not sure, other than Coley, who wants to see Boris. So, Sam, you might have the final say on this. But
we know who Bondi would vote for, so we don't want that, do we? So
I don't know, mate. Well, do a poll, Sammy. Do a poll on on social media, on Twitter or Instagram or whatever your thing is. Who the fans want, we'll get them on.
We get the chairman on. He's now front and centre.
Oh mate, he was amazing. Coley, did you see his bit that he did in the week?
Of course,
Mate,
that's Tigers TV.
I was hugely impressed. I think one of the unsung heroes of this whole thing has been the chairman. He's been working ridiculous hours on phone calls, trying to get us some information, and he's been hugely impressive. So I suppose tough times bring out the best in people, and he's really shown his true colours.
Absolutely. Well, Coley, I look forward to you telling me how you enjoy next week's LTTV. And Jordan, I'm going to keep you to your word now on announcements, so fans can look forward to them. All right, boys. Thank you, Jen.
Cheers, mate.
Thank you.